You're scrolling through endless mini fridge listings because you need something that actually works in the kitchen, the patio, or the little office break room without turning your space into a cold storage warehouse. You've probably already felt the sting of buying a tiny cooler that never reaches the temperature you need, or one that looks great on the counter but ends up taking half the room's footprint. The decision feels a bit like a gamble: spend a little more for a brand you trust, or try the cheapest option and risk a warm beer and a dented budget. That hesitation is real, and it's why I spent a solid afternoon reading through the specs, digging into the handful of reviews that exist, and imagining how this unit would actually fit into daily life. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Summit 19-inch Beverage Center is positioned as an indoor or outdoor cooler, and that dual promise is where the practical trade-offs start. At 3.13 cubic feet, it's big enough to hold a decent supply of cans, bottles, and even a few small growlers. Yet the shallow 17-inch depth means it can slide under most kitchen islands or fit neatly beside a grill. That size is a sweet spot for families that want a dedicated spot for drinks without sacrificing too much cabinet space, and for small calves that need a visible, easy toy stock station. If you're living in a studio apartment, though, the footprint might still feel a bit large, especially if you're already juggling a full-size refrigerator. What really matters once the unit is in place is how it performs day to day. The first thing I noticed while researching was the stainless steel exterior paired with a tempered glass door. That combination isn't just for looks. The metal body helps shed heat when the cooler is placed in a sunny patio, while the glass gives you a quick glance at your stock without opening the door and letting cold air escape. In a real-world scenario, imagine you're hosting a backyard barbecue. You can keep the cooler out on the deck, open the door a crack to grab a soda, and the glass lets you see the level of inventory at a glance. It's a small convenience, but it cuts down on the number of times you have to open and close the unit, which in turn keeps the internal temperature more stable. Temperature control is another point that often trips people up with beverage coolers. Summit doesn't advertise a digital thermostat, but the unit does include an adjustable knob that most users report can keep drinks consistently around 3840 F when set appropriately. In practice, that means you can dial it down a notch for a party where you need ice-cold beer, or leave it a bit higher for a family dinner where you just want your water chilled, not frozen. The real test is how quickly it reaches that temperature after you load a bunch of room temperature bottles. Based on the capacity and the compact compressor, most reviewers say it settles in roughly an hour, which is acceptable for most home setups. If you need a cooler that can go from empty to sub 30 F in 15 minutes, you'll probably need a more industrial unit. One of the hidden trade-offs is the power consumption. Because the unit is designed to be portable and run on a standard 110V outlet, it isn't as energy efficient as a larger, built-in fridge with an inverter compressor. In a typical week of moderate use, opening the door a few times a day, keeping the thermostat around the middle, the electricity draw is modest, but it's not negligible. For renters who are watching their utility bills, it's worth considering that the cooler will add a small but constant load. On the flip side, the unit's ability to run off a standard outlet means you can move it to the garage, a cabin, or a summer house without needing a dedicated circuit. Now let's talk about who will actually get value out of this cooler. If you're a family that frequently buys cases of soda, craft beer, or bottled water for weekend outings, the 3.13 cuft capacity gives you enough room to avoid constant refilling. The shallow depth also means you can tuck it under a counter or inside a pantry without blocking other items. For small business owners, think a boutique coffee shop, a yoga studio, or a co-working space. The visible glass door becomes a subtle marketing tool. Clients see a tidy selection of chilled drinks, and you reduce the need for a separate bar fridge. On the other side of the coin, if you're looking for a dedicated ice maker or a unit that can store larger bottles like wine or gallon-sized soda, the internal dimensions become a limiting factor. The door hinges are also designed for a standard 19-inch width, so a wider bottle or a tall pitcher may not fit comfortably. Practical strengths start with the aesthetic. The stainless steel and glass give it a modern look that blends with both contemporary kitchens and rustic outdoor setups. The temperature knob is simple and intuitive, no menus to navigate, just a turn and you're set.